So everyone can really share their resources. Some shelters have clinic services, some don't. Some shelters perhaps get a huge donation of something and they're willing to share with others. So it's kind
Absolutely. We have, we all have contact points out in the community, and we all have donors, and we all have boards of directors and so forth. So let's say Shelter A gets a phone call from a pet food company, and they say, we've got a truckload of food here, and this actually happened not long ago.
Right.
So we have a truckload of food here that's available, and we'd like to take a semi and drop ship it at your front door, and you can have it for free, and it's good quality food and so forth. But because there are specific freshness dates on there, even though the food is good for 3 or 4 or 5 years after the freshness date, we can't sell it anymore. So rather than just doing what they used to do, which is throw it away,
right.
They would say, okay, you can have this. Well, maybe that shelter doesn't need the food, or maybe they can't take all of it. So what they'll do is they'll bring that up in a meeting, or if we're not in the meeting, maybe we'll go on the internet with each other or what have you. We'll communicate and say, hey, look, I've got a truckload of food here. Should we get this? And who else needs some? And lo and behold, this incident that we had here recently, one of the shelters that has a food pantry so that low-income people and people in targeted groups can come and get food at no cost to help feed their pets during economic hard times. And that food pantry was very, very low because of higher usage, due to the economic conditions and so forth, and also because of the fact that their suppliers, for the same reason, had to cut back a little bit. And lo and behold, here comes this other company, in this case it was Petco particularly, that came in and said, look, we have a truckload of food, do you want it? And the next thing you know, we were able to hook the two of them up. And most likely, prior to the existence of the alliance, that would not have happened. Those two ships would have passed in the night. And instead of that happening, now we have literally hundreds of people out there who are still able to get food at no cost to make sure that their pets can eat as well as they can. So that's a good thing.
So this alliance has really increased communication and collaboration.
Very much. For those of you that are not familiar with our, if you want to call it an industry, obviously the members of, the shelters are virtually all nonprofit organizations. But for those of you that aren't familiar with it, if you go to many cities in the United States, shelters not only don't cooperate with one another, there's a sort of institutional animosity sometimes where they're almost at loggerheads with one another sometimes. And frankly, that was the case here in Chicago 10 years ago. In Chicago now, we are almost one of the models for the nation. There are people that call us from other states and other cities and say, how did you ever do this? And that enables us to, shelter number 1 has 20 cages available, and for some reason they don't seem to have a lot of people calling. And then another shelter maybe gets a call where they need that space. And we can instantly communicate with one another and share those resources because, it's just like hotel rooms. If you fill them all, you're able to handle a lot more guests than if you only fill 80% of them. And so that's just one of the ways in which shelters work together. So that's a big part of what we've been able to do. And once in a while we have people that for one reason or another, maybe they're animal hoarders or maybe they're guilty of some type of mistreatment of animals, and so they go out and they want to adopt an animal. Well, what they would do in the past is they would go from shelter to shelter and try to find a shelter where they could get an animal that they could do whatever they wanted to do with. Now we have a do not adopt list that's shared among the shelters, so that makes it much more difficult. By the way, you were going to also remind people again that they can call in if they want to?
Of course, yes. Please call if you have any questions about CASA or any of the things we're discussing here today. Again, the number is on the screen, 312-738-1060. We're talking about the Chicago Animal Shelter Alliance, a creation of an organization for all the shelters to work more collaboratively together here in Chicago. So Jim, why don't you tell us what are some of the goals of CASA for the homeless animals here in Chicago, and how is CASA working to achieve those goals?
Well, our overarching goal is defined in our mission statement, which basically the goal is stated as we want to reduce and ultimately eliminate the needless euthanasia of companion animals within the city of Chicago. So we're talking dogs, cats, birds, rabbits, etc. Primarily dogs and cats, but others as well. And again, we're talking not about an animal that has incurable, inoperable cancer and is in extreme pain and no longer able to function. We're not talking about an animal that's been in a severe accident and has no hope of living and is suffering intense pain. What we're talking about is animals that are euthanized because of the animal overpopulation problem and because there is no room for them. So our goal, by expanding the number of adoptions where people come in and adopt these animals, and by educating the public as to the importance of spaying and neutering your pet, by working cooperatively with other shelters, and also many of our members by providing low-cost or no-cost spay-neuter assistance for people. These are all ways in which we reduce the number of unwanted animals on the front end, and then also take care of these unwanted animals if and when they actually have to be taken care of. And that's really our overarching goal. We want to get to the point where Chicago is what's called a no-kill city. And a no-kill city basically means that the only animals that die, other than a natural death, are animals that have to be euthanized for a medically necessary or behaviorally necessary reason. And typically there's a veterinarian as well as the animal's owner or caretaker that's involved in that individual decision-making process. And make no mistake, the shelters, like the municipal facilities, like Chicago's Animal Care and Control, that are forced to euthanize animals for reasons of space, those are not people that you know, the old theory in the shelter business was those are bad people. They're not. You know, when your garbage man comes up and picks up your garbage every week, you know, if you think there's too much garbage in the world, you don't wait out at the curb and scream at your garbage man for that. It's not what the garbage man is doing, or the garbage woman, I suppose, is taking care of the problem that we have all created. And what municipal shelters around this country unfortunately have to do is they have to take care of the problem that we have created, which is the problem of unwanted companion animals, or abused or lost or whatever, just the overpopulation of unwanted companion animals. So the whole idea here is that by working together, by educating the public, we want to reduce the supply of these animals, and then whatever animals there are that have to be dealt with, we want to make sure that they're taken care of, and as rapidly as possible that they are adopted out to permanent, loving homes. And that's our goal.